So we are back again, and it's this crazy market.
That's it.
You know what? And for the record, I know you probably like my questions, but I have been off script.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Let's go. Let's do it. There's nothing we like talking more about than real estate, right? So let's do it.
Yeah. So, but I appreciate you liking the questions.
Yes.
But okay, I will start off with my questions.
Do your best.
Okay. So the inventory is building, and
Yes.
I am even willing to say that will be upwards of 7,000 homes plus listed in
Yes.
HRM, just like back when it was in 2016, 2017, 2018, because I looked at what we had up to September, then I did the averages over potentially, that it could be there. So how are you coaching? We have a lot of realtors at our office.
Yep.
And I know you meet with quite a few. So how are you coaching them in this market?
It's funny. I'm chatting with someone today who started in the business in 2018, right? And basically I said to her, you've never seen a normal market. You had a year to kind of get your feet under you, and then everything went bananas. And so as soon as you had a listing, it was gone. And now you've gone into this kind of what I would call depressed market, right? Where there's not nearly the number of sales going on that should be based upon the population growth and everything else that's going on in the province. And so, the coaching that I'm giving to people around that is communication, right? You just have to be in constant and open communication with the people that you're working with, right? And that's where it starts. And so, when you're selling yourself to a potential client of yours, you got to start with what your communication plan is. Whether it's the communication between you and them, or you and all of the other people out there in the industry who you could potentially be marketing this property to, those are the important things for sure. So, everyone can put a property on MLS. I can post a property on Facebook, despite my lack of ability on Facebook. So, it's what can you do to, communicate the value of that property to the rest of the industry, and then communicate back with the vendor, what it is that they need to think about with respect to price and improvements to the home and strategy.
Yeah, and Jackie Rostock and I were talking earlier that, before COVID, you had to have lipstick. COVID, no lipstick.
Yep.
But we're back to lipstick again,
100%.
depending on the price. And it doesn't matter the price point.
100%, yeah.
People have expectations.
I have a one-bedroom apartment to rent, and I'm considering whether I should stage it or not, right? Like, it's amazing how much you have to think about the way in which the product looks when the person comes in and sees the property for the first time, right? So you're competing with more and more homes out there. You've just described how there's going to be, 7,000 homes that have come to the market this year, and that means you have more competition every time a buyer's walking through your door.
Yeah. I was looking at other stats today for October.
Yeah.
So there's 1,082 homes on the market. Guess how many of that inventory is selling?
Geez, I don't know, but it's going to be a pretty low percentage, I would guess.
9%.
Yeah, this is it, right? Like, it's been a stagnant market. This is what the country has seen, not just here in Halifax, but across the country, right?
But how do we get it out to the consumer that this is normal? Mm-hmm. Is it educating the realtor? Like, where is the disconnect that sellers, we can't get COVID prices?
Yeah.
Where is that disconnect happening?
I think it is educating the realtor. We've talked about this in past conversations that we've had, is that, let's call it 5,000 sales, we'll use a round number, that are going to happen in the marketplace this year. There's 150 realtors who are going to do the vast majority of those, you know what I mean? And so, but unfortunately, there's another 1,200 realtors out there in HRM that might do one or two or three a year. And so having that conversation in a confident way is really where I think a lot of the focus needs to be from people like myself, people who are running brokerages. Like, we have to help those people who are not as experienced as you and not feeling, what it's like to have these conversations on a daily basis. Maybe they're having them, again, a handful of times a year. They still need to have them confidently and understand the reality of the market.
So one of the questions that I have here are, what recent trends do you feel are impacting the home prices here in Halifax?
It's interesting to kind of look at what's happened to price. And so you warned me this morning to look at stats, right? Before I got here, which I always appreciate. So what I ran was I looked at the average price for our MLS system across the province and then also in HRM. And I just ran it on average. I did median as well, but I did a 12-month rolling average, meaning that at every point on the chart, I was looking at the previous 12 months averaged. And we saw a dip in average price at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, right? And then prices.
But was that because of we didn't have the Ontario money coming in here?
It's everything, right?
Yeah.
It coincides with the slowdown of Ontarians coming here. It coincides with the start of the foreign buyers ban. It coincides with the start of the deed transfer tax that we've talked about in the past, the non-resident deed transfer. Mortgage rates certainly were a part of that as well. Mortgage rates were really rising through 2022. So you see all of those things, and that's where we went from everybody's investing in real estate, and real estate was hot and sexy to be buying in 2022, and then all of a sudden you slow down to it's just the people who have to move. And so that's where you see that dip in price. And we saw a legitimate dip in price here in HRM between sort of the January and let's call it end of March period, right?
But wouldn't you say that the dip in price is probably more in the higher end product?
Of course, yeah, of course,
Yeah.
right? And so you see that, but then what you've seen is sort of steadily climbing prices again. So what's interesting to me, and you asked about trends, is that price hasn't kind of leveled out. Because I would suspect that the price would level out at some point. But if you compare, the average price at the end of the, month of September to the average price at the month of September, end of the month of September last year, it's higher this year, which again,
But not significantly higher.
not significantly, but it also hasn't gone dead flat. You know what I mean? No. And it certainly, it hasn't come down. So usually you would see inventory growing quickly. You would see the number of sales down like it is right now. And at some point, people just bring their prices down so that they can sell their homes. But what I sort of suspect is the people who are on the market right now have come on at a reasonable price as best they possibly can. There's not a lot of speculative buyers. And those who are kind of like caught or were kind of looking to sell and take advantage of the lift that they got, that happened a couple of years ago. So now all the trades are just happening between people who need to buy and need to sell. And there's almost no speculation going on, right?
No, but again, this is normal.
That's right, exactly. There should be some degree of speculation, a little bit, but there's I would say 2021, 2020, there's just so much of it. It was
crazy.
all speculative. It was all people who were just, I'm going to go buy a house because that's what everyone else is doing, right? And I'm going to make a ton of money in 6 months. And for a while they did, and then, you get caught, right?
Yeah.
So,
So, we've been talking a lot about the government today.
Yes.
And, before I get into there,
Yes.
what are your thoughts of the luxury market? I mean, we have, a pocket of agents in our office who
Yep.
are, synonymous with higher end homes.
Yep.
What are they saying about their market?
Hard. It's certainly a hard market to be operating in right now, right? I guess the downtown core, the stuff on the arm, that kind of thing, that stuff is probably at the point where it's not price sensitive in any way, and so there's not a lot of limitations on that. You get outside into the South Shore, you get Chester, you go along in some of the other directions where you're coastal in the province, like the non-resident deed transfer tax has really, really hurt sales in those areas, right? And people are suffering.
And I did up the proposed tier transfer tax.
Yes.
So I just did it up from 900 or 800
Absolutely.
and up, just to see. So the impact on a $2 million home.
Yep.
Was that $200,000
Yep.
transfer tax,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Plus another 12,500.
Of municipal, absolutely. Yeah.
It is. I don't know how much input NSAR has in with the government, or anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't comment. But are they not aware of how stagnant that market is, and now they're about to put another?
Yeah, absolutely. What I think, if you just want my opinion on this,
Yeah.
Government's just going to take whoever they think is the least sympathetic victim here, right?
Of course, and
so,
people wouldn't say that, who cares
right.
about them, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's what's happening here, right? Because it affects the least amount of voters, and you're picking on people who, presumably the majority of the population would argue can afford it, right? And but it is unfair. You know what I mean? It is an unfair way to approach that, right? And I don't think that the way in which the municipal transfer tax, this one that you've got in front of us here, where it's kind of the tiered system now that was recently brought to council. I don't think that the $1,000 savings that you're going to get on the low end opens up the market to a whole host of new people.
But it's a great sound bite.
It's a great sound bite. That's all it is.
And
right?
it was a great sound bite in January of 2025. Hey, we're going to do the 10%.
Absolutely.
Because that's all it was.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's all it was, right? So,
Because I believe that it didn't really impact the market that much.
Totally. I got a call from the mayor's office when they were going to go debate this, right? The lady who's kind of the, I don't want to, assistant to the mayor is not the right
Yes.
word, but she's a lovely lady.
Oh,
I was
she's
chatting
great.
with her, and she said, what do you think of this? I said, I think it's ridiculous. Like, stop messing around with it. You're already, interfering with the free market enough. You know what I mean? Like, just stop. So, if you want to collect more revenue for the municipality, go talk to the province about this non-resident deed transfer tax. We'll have more Americans come buy properties and be able to spend more money in the province. Go talk to the federal government about the federal, foreign buyers ban. Go talk about the limits on foreign students. We have 3 world-class universities here, but we don't let people come to them right now. Like, that's dumb. So if you want more revenue, go figure that out.
Interesting that you talked about Americans. I would say the month of October, my calls has risen exponentially. From American, and the only thing I can say at this, and it's never happened to me, and the only thing I can say at this point, you need to talk to an immigration lawyer first before I can even help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But our other agents, like, I probably had like 2 or 3 calls in 1 week, which is so unlike the buyers who are calling me.
And tell me, are they people who want to relocate? Or they just want to own a second property?
No, they want to move here.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard, you're the first person I've heard say that. So that would speak highly to your marketing efforts, let's call it. But also a really interesting trend because, it's challenging for people to come here from other parts of the world now and set up shop, right?
Yeah,
so.
And I also have received out of the calls that I have where they were Canadians who moved to the States who want to come back. But they were, let's say, from out west, they want to move to Atlantic Canada.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's great.
But I can't help them.
I know, it's hard. Yeah, it is so hard.
Right? But I believe you're right that needs, if the market continues or, the climate continues to change in the States. What are we waiting for?
Absolutely. I think we should be looking to open up the doors and bring people in. And I know that comes with a host of infrastructure problems. I just complained about how long it took me to get from downtown to here, but you need the money into the region to be able to solve those infrastructure problems.
Right.
So.
But in addition to that, if only 9% of the inventory is selling.
Yeah. You and I talked about this last time, is that I think it's a bit of a fallacy to say that we have a housing crisis at this point, right?
So affordable housing.
Affordable housing, you do, you're right.
Right, so we need like, I can't even think of the word now, but...
incentivize. You need to incentivize affordable housing being built. You need to, you need to understand, if you're the government, you need to understand where it is you need to incentivize.
Subsidized housing is what I meant.
Yeah, certainly you need subsidized housing.
So we need subsidized housing because that's what's affordable.
Yeah.
The builders like Roof Tight and like, they're paying like $300,000 for a piece of land, and sometimes 4.
Agreed.
I don't know what they're paying over here on Gislade or whatever that street is. But the lot prices are crazy.
Yep.
And then you add in the proposal from, Halifax Water, if that comes in.
Absolutely.
The de-transfer tax comes in, that's higher.
It's all just going up, right? And I think that's what, you can either make a decision to take a bigger piece of a static size pie, which is apparently what our council has thought.
Yeah.
Or you can make the pie bigger right? That those are the two ways in which we can all eat more pie, right? And so if we have a municipality who's saying, I want to take a bigger piece out of this same size pie, I think that's the wrong way to approach this. I understand that growing the pie means you're going to have infrastructure and schooling and healthcare problems, but you can solve those with the right plan, right? I think it's a mistake for us to say, let's just close the doors for a little while and figure out our pie, and then we can become attractive to the world again, because it's not easy to become attractive to the world again, right? We've struggled with that for centuries here, probably in Atlantic Canada.
Well, yeah, you're right. And I don't know, like, how do we get, like, bend their ear? Like, this is, because I don't think they even listen to us, do they?
Hard. There's nobody who's a louder voice than NSCR has been on the deed transfer tax, the non-resident deed transfer tax. They have been railing on it from day one, and with some good people, doing that too.
Yeah.
I've heard your voice. I've heard the PAC committee and the PMAC committee talking about that over at NSCR a lot. I've heard, Donna's voice. I've heard all these other people who are very right about how bad that policy is. And
yeah.
But again, unfortunately, the politics of it comes back down to which voter group am I affecting the least, right? And
I know, they don't care.
And that's where we're at a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
We talked about immigration. I believe that's certainly affecting our market here.
Yeah.
So have you seen, when you're looking at your stats at the office, like, is there any particular type of property that's selling more over another, or like, are you seeing any trends there?
It was interesting. We did that session last week on new construction, and some of the affordability in new construction is amazing, right? Like, there's some stuff that's being built now in the sort of 600,000 to 700,000, or even slightly more than that range. And what was amazing to me was that a lot of our folks, who I consider very educated, didn't know about a lot of that product, right? And came away from it saying, wow, that was great. It's great to learn that there are those options out there. So the pressure that's on, kind of the first-time home buyer price point maybe doesn't need to exist as hard as it is. You know what I mean? If there's something that can be built, and I know that you don't necessarily have a bunch of the new construction that's going on that's at that price point right now, but there is some of that going on, and that that is a momentum builder, I guess, for the market. Is again that first-time buyer price point continues to be one where there's lots of competition. And I think that's, if we could solve that, then that's going to really unlock the rest of the market for sure.
No, I agree. And we talked earlier about, with another agent, I talked about buyer expectations. And I don't know if the buyer is being educated what to expect when you're going into a $500,000 home.
Totally agree. Agree.
And I know that's really bad to say.
Yeah.
But I mean, because a $500,000 home 15 years ago, wow, it's a $500,000 home.
Yep. Yeah.
And now it's like,
yeah,
okay, it needs work.
Well, I'll tell you an anecdotal story. I went to look at one personally. I looked at one that just came on the market in sort of my neighborhood-ish for $399, right? And I thought, okay, well, I'm ready for what this is going to look like, right? The agent is one who does more work on the South Shore than here in town, and so I'm talking to her after. She said, yeah, we got like a ton of viewing requests, and immediately got multiple offers on it, that kind of thing. It's not what it's like down the South Shore. I said, no, but you have put on a piece of property here that is exactly what people are hoping for, right? But walking through it, there was no part of that property that could be left the way it was. It all needed to be changed, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, that to me is, $400,000 property that's fully finished, somewhere close to the city. Hard to. I haven't seen one in a very, very long time, right?
Yeah.
You got to get out to Windsor, you got to get out to Truro, you got to get outside a fairly significant amount to get a property that's kind of move-in ready, if that's the price point you're in. So, those expectations around buyers need to change for sure. So, and the only way we can do that is educate them for sure.
Yeah.
So,
But is it the parents too?
Totally. If you're out around with your parents, like my mom thinks it's crazy too, right? And she lives in Burlington, which is, I think, the second most expensive market in Southern Ontario. She says, "Yeah, these houses are crazy. Like, I would never live in any of them." I said, "Mom, that house is worth $1.2 million." She's like, "Oh, that's crazy. I wouldn't pay $250,000 for that." I'm like, "Well, thank God you're not in the market." You know
There
what I
you
mean?
go.
So, yeah.
So last year, the trend
Yep.
just went right down.
Yep.
And then it flatlined in January and February.
Yep.
It was bad. Then it started to pick up in March.
Yep.
Are you expecting the same? So I know that's seasonal,
Yeah.
but it was gross
Yeah.
last January.
Yeah.
What are you expecting?
The big variable was the kind of global uncertainty around what was going on with the US, right? And
Yeah.
so, I really did expect that this year would have been a busier year than it was. But I also totally understand why, if you are an employee of Michelin and you saw that there might be 130% tariffs on car parts, back and forth across the border here, that you might be concerned you would be laid off, right? And so you're going to just put things on pause and let things settle out. So I think if we get into January, there hasn't been sort of some radical change, and we can all digest the uncertainty that's going on down in the US right now, for sure. I think you would see a slightly better year in terms of the number of trades happened, but there's nothing in me that says, "Hey, let's rock and roll, pay the toll again, and we're back to the races." You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I don't think we will. I don't think it's going to be bad as last January.
Yeah. I think what we were doing, we were all glued to our TV watching, what the heck is this guy going to do?
Well, because it
next?
was fun.
It was fun, absolutely, right? And we all were kind of like sitting on pins and needles to think, "Oh my God, did my bananas just go from 89 cents to $10 a pound?" You know what I mean?
I know,
Like,
it's
what's
crazy.
going on? So,
What is the sentiment of COVID agents? Like, how are they feeling now?
it's a very divided group. The COVID agent, there are some people who have really stepped up, you know what I mean? And I've seen them realize that that is not the reality of the world, right? And that I'm going to now dig in and I'm going to learn my craft and I'm going to become an expert at this and be really good.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who have legitimately just almost tossed in the towel and said, this is I'm not putting energy into this, and gone and found a job somewhere else, right? And
It's difficult.
It is difficult, and I get it. I think there is no doubt that they would have heard many, many times, "This is not normal," right? This is not normal.
I know.
But while you're in it, it's hard to really hear that because you're just experiencing this amazing wave, right? And I don't think it felt good. It certainly didn't feel good for everybody. You would not describe it as, "Oh man, I was personally fulfilled a whole lot." But
No. I mean, I felt a lot of empathy for buyers who overpay. I mean, I was happy for a seller.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, but I kept looking back or reflecting on the ship start here.
Yep.
And I remember, I don't know, I think I did a podcast like this, but I was doing them on Zoom, and I had about 5 agents on. And the one agent, "Oh no, this is going to last." And I'm like, "Dude, this is not sustainable."
Nope, not at all. Yeah, not at all. I remember Stacy in our office came walking up to me once and she said, "Look at this." And I said, "What?" And she pulled out a piece of paper. She said, "Prices have gone up by 1% a month for the last 5 months." I said, "That is bananas." Like, we went through a decade where we would have seen
2% a year.
Yeah, 2% a year, right? So you get 5% lift in 5 years, let's call it, or 3 years at least, right? And we did it in a quarter. Like, that's just never
it's crazy.
sustainable.
So I'm going to go back to sellers and agents now.
Yeah.
How are you coaching your agents to price a house?
It's very difficult, for sure, because you have somebody in the ear of the seller whispering and saying, "You'll get more than that, right? Just keep. Let's put it on here and try this, right?" I have always been a proponent of saying to the person, like, "This is my best opinion. It might not be what you're hoping to hear, right?" And but you got to tell the truth, right? There's no great relationship I've gone into that started with a lie, right? And so that's the way I've always kind of coached that. I guess probably during COVID, we were all confused enough where you'd say, "Listen, this is what I think. There's not a lot of comps that will tell you this, but this is what I think. And then they would pick a number over here, and then it would sell way above that, right?
Oh, I know, it's
And
crazy.
So, we all probably got shaken there, but that's, when I say the professionals have kind of reemerged here, like that's the benefit of someone like yourself. Like you realize, oh yeah, I'm back to the point where it's very important for me to do a great analysis on this before I go give advice.
Yeah. You know what, even the advice that I do give, like I tell a client, I said, look, I said, your house could sell in a week,
Yep.
a month or a year. I have no idea.
Yep.
And
Yep.
things that I think won't go over, like I had a house out in Fairmont.
Yep.
I'm listing it for 1.1.
Yep.
I said, could take a while.
Yep. Yep.
Well, lo and behold, didn't I have 4 offers on
Isn't that
Monday?
wild?
I
Yeah.
was blown away.
Yeah.
Yet I had a property out on Basinview
Yep.
for $499,
Yep.
and I'm getting offers at $430.
Yeah, it's wild.
So
isn't it?
as much as I understand this market and the stats and analyzing, to price a property now
Yeah.
has been a struggle. And
Absolutely.
And and I had another client that I mentioned. She said, "How much lead time do I need to sell my house?" I'm like, 6 months.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's good to give people that outside, or as much as you can, worst case scenario, right?
I'd rather give worst case scenario.
Absolutely, and you can only control what you can control, and this is what I'm also telling people. I said, there's 4 P's that you talk about, classic marketing 4 P's, right? Price, product, positioning, and promotion, right? Like
I thought you were going to say price, product, position, and pray.
right, yeah, that also would work too. You're right, yeah. But the client controls the price. The client controls the product, right?
Yep.
And so we influence them to understand what the market's telling us about those 2 things. The price should be this, or if you want it to be a different price, then the product has to change in this way. You got to fix up your kitchen, you got to do whatever, right? If you want to get that price. We control the positioning and the promotion, like where we put it and how we just display it to the marketplace. This is where you're spectacular at that, right? And so it's impossible for someone to come back to you and say, Sandra, I don't like how you've marketed my home, because you've done a great job of it. You've done it hundreds of times before, if not thousands at this point. So, that you've taken that and you've solved that problem for them. So really the only 2 things to discuss are price and position or price and product at that point,
Yeah.
right? And so to me, it's important for it not to be just an initial conversation, but the market will tell you very quickly
Yeah.
whether they accept what
But-
you've put on.
But right now, it's only 9%
Yeah.
selling.
Yep.
You could be the perfect price.
Yep, you could, absolutely, and this is where it gets really confusing. I've looked at some with people. There was one that I looked at with an agent of ours, and he said, "Well, I think I'm going to ask him for a price reduction." And I said, "Okay, well, why?" And he said, "Well, we haven't had any activity," and this is in the luxury market, right? And I said, "Well, first thing, I don't love the photos that we have on your property here. Like, let's go fix those up first. I think they could do a little work on the exterior look of the property, right? So now I'm talking about, promotion, and I'm talking about the product itself before we're talking about price, because I don't think you always have to go to price. But I said, you might be a little high as well." And so followed up with him a couple of days later, and I said, "How did the conversation go with your client about, if we wanted to put some planters outside and get new front photo taken, and there were some weeds in the driveway, that kind of thing. And at that price point, none of that's expected." He said, "It went great. Like, we had the conversation. They've got the landscaper coming over to do this.
Nice.
She went out and weeded the driveway, and they're going to reduce the price a little bit." I said, "Well, you've got a good seller there. That person's motivated. That person wants to sell the property. I think you really need to lean back into spending some more bucks on marketing or whatever it is at that point, because they've done their part, and now it's time for you to do your part, right?" And,
Yeah.
But in that conversation, sorry, very long way to get to this, there had been no other properties that sold for that
No.
price point, right? So you can't really make the argument that someone chose a different property over this one.
What I say to clients, the good news is nothing else is sold around us.
This is it.
The bad news is nothing else is sold around us.
right? Yeah. So there's just nobody kind of looking in what you have to sell, right? You're selling a product that people aren't necessarily out there looking for. So
Yeah.
that's when it gets really tough as an agent to advise, and it's hard for sellers to make decisions. At
Oh,
that
I know.
point, so.
Especially if you have realtors, the market's hot.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's the evil part of the industry is you've always got someone whispering in your ear saying, "Oh, your agent's not doing a great job" or whatever. And it's just 99% of the time it's complete BS.
I hear you.
Yeah,
Well, on that note,
it's a pleasure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you took the time to come out
You
here and, fighting the traffic of downtown Halifax.
Well, that's it, right? Like, I can't plan it very well anymore. I think we live in a bigger metropolitan than we did a decade ago.
I hear you. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.